Alrighty, well, my name is Lindsay Wharton, and just for a little bit of information about me, I'm the Extended Campus and Distance Services Librarian at FSU Libraries. So I've been working at FSU for about 3 years, and my job is really focusing on supporting our students and our faculty who are either doing distance education or at any of the other extended campus sites. But I am also tasked with being the social work subject librarian. So every FSU librarian is assigned a subject area based on your interests and kind of your expertise, and I was given the College of Social Work. It's my only area, and I love working with the social work students and the social work faculty. So I'm putting on these workshops, but I want you to know that I am here to help you in lots of ways. You can meet with me and have reference consultations at any point in your research process. It's a really good idea probably to meet with me at the beginning of your research process because I can help you maybe suggest databases, especially if you're a new student, talk about what databases would work best for your research, talk about keywords, of course talk about your citations, which is what we're going to be talking about today. But I always want you to feel like I am a resource for you during your time here at FSU. Also, if you're looking for certain material or have a question about using library resources or services, feel free to contact me. I know it can be really overwhelming, and I want to make this process easier for you and always feel like you have me to help you whenever you get stuck. I also hold online office hours Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. So you'll see that bit.ly at the bottom of the screen. That is the link into my Collaborate room, and I really just sit in the room and I wait for questions. So always feel like you can come in, sign in if you have a question about some research or maybe a quick question just about a resource, a database. Feel free to sign in. I'm here. I'm waiting for you. So you can also follow me on Twitter if you are on Twitter, and there's my email right there if you ever need to contact me. So today we're going to be talking about APA citations and formatting. And I know that this is something that can feel really tedious, and a lot of your instructors think that it's really important to be very, very specific when you're doing your citations and when you're formatting your papers. And that's because it's really about academic integrity and about making sure that you're following the standards of being part of the FSU community and sort of on the environment of higher education. And I'm hoping that this presentation will maybe clarify some of the questions that you've had in the past, show the difference between some different sorts of citations. But like I said, I always want you to feel like I'm a personal resource for you if you have any questions about citations or formatting. But we also have lots of resources at FSU to support you as well, and so I'm going to end the presentation talking a little bit about that and going into our homepage and showing where those resources are located. So why cite? Why do we cite? Why do we take the time to create citations? The first and probably most important reason is to avoid plagiarism and give credit to the creator. This is very important because as you start researching and publishing your research, you'll understand that you have ownership and you've put a lot of work into this, and you really need to give credit. You would want credit for all the work that you did as well. And really it's about avoiding plagiarism. And plagiarism is not just copy and pasting. I think that's something that especially a lot of undergraduates think. Plagiarism is much more widespread than that. It's also so your reader can locate sources you cited. This means that if you have a citation in your paper and somebody's reading your paper, they may see an article that you quote and they really want to go and actually read that original research that you quoted. Well, if you don't have a citation, the reader can't even find that, and how would they even know if that's valid, real, and be able to sort of analyze that source on its own? It also demonstrates accuracy and reliability. So it makes your paper more legitimate. It makes it look like you've done your work to come to the conclusions which you're presenting. It also shows the amount of research you've done. Anyone can really go into a Word document and just type a bunch of thoughts in a sort of editorial, but this is actually showing that you've spent time reading other sources, looking at what's happened in the field to come to your conclusions. And it strengthens your work by lending outside support to your ideas. Even if you're using those ideas as counterpoints, you really need that research and looking at what's been done in the past, what else is done on what you're researching, or else it can look like you're just kind of, shooting in the dark. So I wanted to show you some of the current statistics, and this is actually from the FSU website about type of academic honor policy violations by academic year. And I think that some people probably think that plagiarism isn't that big of an issue, or maybe it only happens a little bit. But as you can see, it's by far the biggest sort of violation that's committed by FSU students, and we have 168 violations just last academic year. And these are people who possibly were kicked out of school because they plagiarized. And so it's something that is taken very, very seriously at FSU, which is why I'm really thankful that you guys took the time today to come to this workshop so we could talk about it, and you could make sure and do these, pretty easy steps to avoid ever getting in that type of trouble. So we're going to start out and talk about formatting, but I'm not going to talk about it a lot. You have all probably formatted your papers many times, and it's just something that you always need to remember. You need to follow the standards of formatting that APA put forth. So standard size paper, which is 8.5 by 11, 1-inch margins, 12-point font. You need to have a page header or a running head at the top of every page, and that's going to be flush to the left. And it's going to be in all caps with the title of your paper, but it should be, if you have a very long title, it should be a shortened version that does not exceed 50 characters. So this is something very specific to APA. If you maybe are familiar with MLA, which is a lot of times what you use in your undergraduate research. So take a couple look at examples of what that running head will look like. And there's going to be 4 major sections of your paper. You're going to have the title page, then the abstract, then the main body, and then the references. I get a lot of questions about, do I need a title page? Do I need to write an abstract for my paper? And it's hard for me to answer. If you want to follow all the rules of APA, yes, you need both those things. But your professor specifically may not require that. So if you ever have questions about whether you need to write an abstract, which, by the way, I think is good practice for if you're actually going to publish, ask your professor. So we're going to start out with in-text citations. This is actually when you are citing in the text of your paper. So they're going to be placed within sentences and paragraphs so that it is clear what information is being quoted or paraphrasing. This is actually one of the issues that a lot of professors are very specific about. You need to have your citations, so your parentheses, inside the sentence. So the period is going to be on the outside of it. And I'll show you some examples, of course. The last name of author and the year of publication is going to be inserted in text at the appropriate point. One thing that's with APA is you actually have some flexibility about how you're going to put in that information, but you always need to make sure you have the author and year in there. If a work has no author, you'll use the first couple words of the work's title and omit any initial titles. If you are directly quoting a work, you will need to include the author, year of publication, and the page number. So, works by a single author. Here we have the same citation, but it's written 2 different ways. So you have the first where you don't even mention the author in the sentence, and you have Simon 1945 at the end. Or here you have Simon, 1945, explain that. Both of these are correct. Works by multiple authors. You use the ampersand, not the word and. So you have Leiter and Maslash with the comma. Or if there's more than 5 authors, you actually use the first author that's listed on the citation or on the article, and then et al. If it's a work by an association, a corporation, or a government agency, you will list out, write the name of that agency, and then the year it was published. So for a direct quote, remember, you will need to add the page number. So here you can see I did it 2 different ways, and I actually, the second example, where it's Gas and Veronis, 1984, and then I put the page number at the end. So there's not a specific way. You don't have to put them all one after the other, but you have to make sure all that information is in the sentence. So direct quotes that are 40 words or longer will actually be indented, the same indentation you would use to start a new paragraph. And these will actually have not the information inside the sentence. So you can see at the very end of that quote, the ignorance of the author, I have a period, and then I put the page number. If you have 2 or more references within the same paraphrase, you would actually use the semicolon to separate them like this. And I want to be very clear about paraphrasing. I think this is maybe somewhere that people get a little hung up on plagiarism, and the gray area is only changing a few words from a quote is not paraphrasing, it is plagiarism. And so if you just go into thesaurus.com and find some synonyms, that's not putting the work in your own words. So now we're going to move on and talk about the reference list. So this is going to be the list that is at the end of your paper, where you are going to list all of the references you use in your paper, whether you directly quoted them or paraphrase them. So you will arrange entries by alphabetical order by the author's last name, or if no author, by title in the same list. You will write out the last name and initials for all authors, and use the ampersand for listing multiple authors. Capitalize only the first word of a title or subtitle. So we just got a question, when doing a direct quote, do you need to place page numbers from just books, or does this also apply to journal articles? This also applies to journal articles. So all journal articles, the way the volumes and issues work, they always do have page numbers. So you'll use that page number in the quote as well. So you will only capitalize the first word of a title or a subtitle. I think this is something that trips a lot of people up about APA citations. It still trips me up when I look at it, because it's weird not to capitalize the title of a book or the title of an article. But I'll show you some examples, and this is just something you'll have to get used to. You'll use the hanging indent when you're listing your citations, and you italicize titles of books and journals. And then you'll use the P or PP for page numbers of articles or chapters from edited books. So one thing that's changed for online sources, I think probably a majority of you are going to use mostly online sources for your research, looking at peer-reviewed journals. And so you'll be using the DOI, the Digital Object Identifier, opposed to the URL to identify online journal articles. And those DOIs are available whenever you get an article from a database. That will be in the bibliographic information. If there is no DOI available, you'll use the journal or database homepage. If the work is not dated, as in the case of an online encyclopedia article, include the date that you retrieved the information. I want to give a little tip here though. If you're having a really hard time finding the information you need to cite something, that probably is a clue that maybe you shouldn't be citing that material. Maybe that material is not up to the standards of research you should be including in your work. Every time you use a peer-reviewed article, all of this information is going to be extremely easy to find from a database. If you're using online sources and looking at an online encyclopedia, that does have its place. That can be useful in some research, but always be wary if you're having trouble finding that information. So here is an example of a journal article accessed online. You have last name, first initial, ampersand, then the year, and you can see that the Addressing Disparities Consultation and Outreach Strategies for University Settings, only the A of addressing is capitalized. Then we have the title of the journal. that's capitalized as normal. It's italicized. Then you have the volume, 59, which is italicized. And in parentheses, you have the issue, which is 4. That is not italicized. Then you have the page, range, and the DOI. This is probably going to be your most standard citation, especially since most of you are going to be using journal articles. When in a reference list will this need to be double-spaced? All of it should be double-spaced. So your citation should never change. Your spacing will never change in your citations. Even when I showed that long quote, as I did, that will be double-spaced as normal. All of these citations will be double-spaced as well, so it will fit the format of the rest of your paper. So here I have an article from an internet-only journal. Looks very, very similar to the article from the peer-reviewed journal, the database, where we have the copyright is has the capital, and then you have the magazine in italics, the issue, the number, DOI. Here we have a journal article with a database with no DOI. Instead, you'll see that I have retrieved from Business Source Complete, which is the name of the database, and then I actually have the database homepage, instead of copying and pasting that incredibly long URL you would have in the search. Here is a typical book. Very similar. We have the title of the book in italics, so Principles of Macroeconomics, and then the edition in parentheses after the title, but in the same sentence. Then the city of publication, colon, and then the publisher. Here we have a chapter or essay from edited book. I think that citing chapters is pretty common. So we have the title of the book, body and voice, and then we have a colon, sure. So there's the book right there. Okay, great. That is an error. That should be uppercase. So the only thing that's going to be strangely lowercase is the title of the book. But that Irwin should be, that's an error on my part. Sorry about that. No problem. And that's my point. It's very, very easy to make errors going through and doing all of this. And so it's about going back, double checking, checking again, and always, if you're mostly having your formatting right and everything looking good, I think a lot of instructors are going to be very understanding if you have an error like that. Like hopefully you guys are understanding, but it's always important to try and get everything as right as it can be. So here we have a chapter or an essay from an edited book. And I wanted to show that after the body and voice, you have the colon. You always are going to capitalize that first word after the colon as well. So that's why here, the is capitalized. Then we end the sentence and we have in. No, you don't need that, but I've seen it done both ways. I've seen the spaces between the page numbers, but that's not necessary. So I would suggest kind of just making sure you stay with the same formatting. Then you have the in T. McGreeny with the addition, or actually that stands for editor. So you have in who's the editor of the book where the chapter came out, and that's the title of the chapter right after the year. And then we have music and gender, and after the colon, perspective is capitalized from the Mediterranean. And Mediterranean is obviously capitalized because you're still going to capitalize things that are proper nouns. And then you have the pages where that chapter would be found in that book. And then the city and who published, the publisher. You're going to find tons of examples at Al Purdue APA Formatting and Style Guide. It's my go-to. Yeah, there was a bunch more examples I wanted to include today. There's just so many different ways you can cite. There's going to be different authors if you're citing multiple things in a quote. And so I think that you really have to go and look specifically as you go through your citation list if you have any questions. And once again, I'd always be happy to look at your citations if you want to email me as well. So what does FSU Libraries offer other than me doing this presentation? We have citation management tools. So we, as part of your resources we offer at FSU Libraries, is a RefWorks subscription. And if you are not familiar with citation management tools, I highly suggest getting to know one of these tools. It is going to change your research life. It makes organizing your research and your sources and also creating bibliographies so much faster. So we have a RefWorks subscription, which is included in what we pay for as FSU Libraries. The time you're at FSU, you'll have that RefWorks subscription. We also offer support for Zotero and EndNote. So Zotero is a free open source software. It's amazing. It's what I use for my research. And like I said, all of these have positives and negatives, and people prefer one over the other. My biggest advice is just get to know one of them and start using it. We also have a citation research guide on APA, and I'll show you how to get to there from the FSU Libraries homepage. We offer an online edition of APA Style Guide to Electronic References. I think that electronic sources are probably the most problematic, and so having that ebook always available is going to be really useful. We have physical citation guides at each of our reference desks in Stroger and Dirac at the other libraries. So if you want to hold a book, I like holding books, you can always go and get one of those guides. We have created a bunch of video tutorials that detail about how to cite and different things about formatting. And we also offer databases that have built-in citation tools, and so that is what I'm going to show you guys right now. So I'm about to start sharing my screen. Before I start and go through our resources, does anyone have any questions about the presentation so far or anything they want me to go over really quickly? Sure, I can pull that up. I'm going to pull up the one from APA Al Purdue, and we'll talk about that for a second. I'll actually do that right now. So I'm going to start by sharing my screen. Jennifer, can you see that my screen okay with the FSU Libraries homepage? Great. So I'm going to go to my APA Al Purdue, which, like I said, it's my go-to. And let's look at the sample paper. I find the sample paper extremely helpful. So let me zoom in on this so we can all look at it together. And it's really nice because it explains why you're doing certain things and how you're doing them. So you'll see right here, this is what the title page will look like. You will actually write the words in the top left that says running head, colon, then the title of your paper in all caps. And this will just be on the first page. Let me scroll to the second page real quick. So you'll see here, you only have the title of your paper in all caps, but the running head is going to be on that title page. You're actually going to write that out. So here you have the title of your paper, your name, the author's name, and the institution. That's all you really need down there. That's all I would put on my paper. It's going to be double-spaced. It's not going to be italicized or bolded or anything like that. If you have an author note, which I'm not sure I've seen many author notes, especially in papers that are turned into for courses, you would put it on the title page. And if we scroll down real quick, let's just look at the abstract page. This is what an abstract page would look like as well. It would have abstract in the center. You would have your abstract double-spaced, just describing your paper. Usually they're about 3 to 5 sentences. And then at the bottom, you'd write keywords in italics, colon, and you'd write a couple of keywords. This is the same format you will follow when you publish. You will have to supply keywords to your publisher. So it's nice to start thinking about that. What are your search terms? Librarians love that sort of stuff. And then this is going to look how your first page of your actually writing will work, your main body. You will put the title of the paper in the center before you start your paragraph, and you will make sure it is not bolded. So does anyone else have any questions before I go to the FSU Libraries page? If you are including multiple quotes by same author and same work within one paragraph, do you cite every sentence or just one citation at the conclusion of the paper? You are actually going to cite every time you're paraphrasing or every time you're using a direct quote. So I know that that can be tedious, but it's important because, especially if you have a lot of citations, your reader wants to know what work you're connecting with which thoughts. So you're going to need to put that in there every time. Does anyone else have any other questions before I move on? Great. Okay. So they're clarifying that last question about the one citation at the conclusion of the paper. If you're asking if you only need the one citation on the reference list, then yes, you'll never duplicate citations in your reference list. There'll only need to be one citation, no matter how many times you use that work in your paper. It will be your in-text citations, which can be duplicated. Does that answer your question? Cool. All right. So now I want to show some of the resources we offer through FSU Libraries. And I'm not sure how many of you are really familiar with using our website, but we had a huge redesign over the summer, so this is going to look a lot different than even probably what you were used to using in the spring, which can be confusing. So if you have any questions about our website, you're looking for a resource, you can't find it, feel free to email me. I'd be more than happy to help. This is our new front page, and what we're going to focus on right now is actually looking at the citation management tools, which is right here, a button right in the front. So I'm going to scroll down. So here we have our citation research guides is the first link, and we have one on APA, MLA, and Chicago styles, and that's going to provide a bunch of examples about different citations, what they look like, and it's probably going to be even more in-depth than what I went through today. We have online full-text citation manuals, which I mentioned in the PowerPoint. We also have print style guides, so that's what I'm saying, actually a physical book. And if you scroll down some, you'll see information about citation management tools. So this is going to give you information about RefWorks, Zotero, and EndNote, the 3 tools we offer support for. So RefWorks is one, it's a web-based citation manager. It's all online in your browser. Zotero, on the other hand, does include a download and a browser plugin. But these are going to import references directly from databases, which is one reason why they're so easy to use and so streamlined for using them with library resources. And all of them, like I said, are a little bit different. Zotero, like I said, is free, open source, while the RefWorks and EndNote require an account. And today, because RefWorks is free, I'm going to show you my RefWorks and show you how it works. But first, we're going to go to a database and do a test search so I can show some of the tools that are offered through our databases. So here, I'll go to the Databases tab, and I'm going to search for database by keyword, and so I'm going to search social sciences. And the second result will be one of the databases I really like using when I'm helping people with social work research, which is Social Sciences Full Text. And I will click the link here to get in the database. If you're off campus, you will have to log in. I am off campus right now, so it's asking me to log in, my Blackboard login. And here is the home page of the database if maybe you're not that familiar with EBSCO Databases. So I could spend a lot of time talking about this database and the search functions and all that, but I'm not going to. I will be offering other workshops that are more general throughout the year, so feel free to contact me if you'd like more information about those. And what I'm going to search today is actually mental health and recovery. So I get 739 results, which isn't that bad, and I'm going to scroll down and up this result here, substance abuse recovery among homeless adults in Atlanta, Georgia, and a multi-level drug abuse resiliency tool. Looks interesting to my research. I'm going to click on that. So right when you click on an article from a database, it is going to give you all of the information you need to create a citation. And one thing I want to show you is these tools on the right side of the screen. So you have print, email, save, and cite. If I click that cite tool, it's actually going to give me a computer-generated citation, and APA is one of the first on the list. And there's the citation for the article. Now, I always want you to be very, very wary of computer-generated citations. I can see with this one right away, it's actually not correct. For one, if you look really closely, and let me zoom in so you can see, substance abuse recovery and homeless adults, there's words that are capitalized in that title that should not be capitalized. We know that because we just went over it. and it's missing the DOI. And if it doesn't have a DOI, it should actually have the database link right here. So it would say retrieve from Social Sciences Full Text with the link to the database homepage. But this provides a really great starting point to where you maybe don't have to start from scratch. You can just go in and fix what needs to be fixed. One thing I want to show you, though, is this export button, which is under the Tools site. If I click on Export here, it's going to give me multiple options. And you will see at the bottom, Direct Export to RefWorks, Direct Export to EndNote, or EasyBib. I'm going to select the Direct Export to RefWorks link and click Save. So then in a new tab, it's going to go to my RefWorks account. And I'm going to go to Legacy RefWorks. That's just because I like the old RefWorks, because I like what I know. But there's actually a new RefWorks. It's very redesigned and very clean, nice looking. So here, it's going to ask me for my login name. And I'm going to enter my FSU email, my password. So if you have not logged into RefWorks before, you will need to go to that Citation Management Tools page I show you and create your account there. Always create it with your FSU email. I'll log in. And if I was already logged in, it would make me go through these steps. And then this Import References box is going to come up. And if I go to the last imported folder, it's going to show me it just imported that Substance Abuse Recovery Among Homeless Adults article right into my RefWorks folder. So now I have saved it into my account. I can sign out of my account, leave my computer, and if I sign just back into RefWorks, I could go to this Find It at FSU, and it would open it up right to the article. So it's just a great organization tool. Now let me go to my bigger list of references. I have 74 references in here, and as you can see, I have created certain folders if you wanted to actually have different folders for each different research you do. If I wanted to create a bibliography, I would click this button here, choose your citation style, so you're going to choose APA 6th edition, make sure you're using the latest edition, and create bibliography. It's going to open up in a new tab, and look at this. There are all of my references put into APA style. Once again, probably not perfectly. Each one needs to be looked over and checked. But this is going to save me so much time in not going in and having to do my references from scratch and being able to copy and paste this at the end of my paper and then go through and fix the references instead of just writing them myself. So I'm going to go back to the home because I want to show you just really quick. There are a lot of options for getting help at FSU. You can always find your subject librarian, which is me, in case you forget. You can schedule a consultation with me. There is a form there, but you have my email. Feel free to email me directly. We do offer walk-in services. You know, if you're in Stroger, if you're just hanging out on Landis on a pretty day, want to go in, you can always talk to a librarian who's there, who's available. We also have this live chat service, so you can click on it here, or it's going to be this button on the right side of your screen that's going to be available at any time you're on our homepage. And this is a live chat with an FSU librarian. I sit on this chat for 4 hours a week, and it's available anytime Stroger is open. So that means 24 hours a day, 5 days a week. We only close early on Friday and Saturday evenings. If you're interested in trying to do self-help, we have research guides, videos and tutorials, our FAQs, and we even have some most asked questions at the bottom. So, like I said, Stroger is here to help you always remember that, and always know that we are here to make your time at FSU easier. So this is the end of my presentation, and we have some time for questions. So think of some questions and just enter them in the chat box, either any of the students. You can get Jennifer too, or Julie and TJ. Feel free to ask me questions. And it can be about APA. It can also be about the library in general. Okay, so I see that there is some concern about properly citing. If the student is paraphrasing or generating personal thoughts, are you citing after every sentence, or the frequency? So obviously when you're doing your, what is the frequency? Okay. When you're doing your research, you're going to be discussing, especially in your literature review section, other research on the topic you've done, what is kind of the context, what is the historical background. If you are specifically citing a study and paraphrasing what it says in your own words, you should include the study that you're citing. If there's multiple ones, if you're saying several studies in the 1980s looked at this aspect, I would cite as many, and all of these always need to be in your citation list. If you're generating your own personal thoughts or coming to your conclusion, you don't need to include an in-text citation. I, as a librarian, always think that people should be on the safe side. Does that mean if you need to, because maybe you're referencing or another study that you've already cited? Probably not. Probably not. And in a way, this is up to your own discretion. Be safe rather than be sorry, and make sure when you're paraphrasing, you're really paraphrasing, you're really rephrasing the statement. But you don't need a citation for every single thing you say in your paper. Well, most of it is not going to be. And you know what is a great way to feel more confident about what your paper should look like? Read more journal articles. I mean, the fact is, professors want students' papers to look like or to mimic almost what's in a peer-reviewed journal. So I think the more peer-reviewed journals you read, and you get used to the way especially their literature reviews read, that's what your citations need to look like. That's the sort of professional standard that you're being held to now. And so I think that's a great way for you to kind of figure out where you are, what your paper should be looking like. Does that answer your question? The older article things are tough. So in a field like nursing, they're told not to use anything that's less than 5 years old. 5 years. So that means anything before 2011 is obsolete. And I know actually social work does a lot of interdisciplinary work that goes into the field of nursing. So if you're looking at medical scientific literature, keep that 5-year mark in mind. But especially in social work, I think that a lot of times you're looking at what has been done in the past at different evidence-based research. And there's a time and a place where any type of historical research is going to be really important and is going to be necessary in your paper. And you say, if there's nothing more updated out there, that's fine. I think that's fine. I mean, if there's been some sort of scientific advances from then, you need to be critical of that. More than anything, Being a good researcher is looking at an article critically. So if it's from 97, saying to yourself, what's changed since then? How has the research advanced? If it hasn't, that's a very valid article. If it has, you can still use that in your paper, but make note of it. Make note of, this is a little bit of an older article, but it's still applicable to my research, to what I'm looking at. Lots of research that people do, they have to use sources from the 1970s and 80s, but they're always providing those in a historical context. They're not equating those with the most breaking research coming out in journals that came out last year. If you guys ever have any other questions or want to talk about anything as you're going through your reference list, that's a lot of time when probably issues are going to become very clear where you're like, whoa, what do I do here? There's my email. Email me. I'm more than happy to help you to look at your reference list. So I really suggest that you use me as a resource while you're here at FSU. And I want to thank you all for taking the time out of your busy day. I know that September is like insane in the fall semester to come and listen to this workshop. I will be holding other online workshops on various topics throughout the semester, so email me or check on the FSU Library's website if you'd like more information about that. And thank you so much for coming today. I'm really glad I got to sort of, quote-unquote, meet you guys.